All right, everyone. We are going to get started. It's 5:02. Welcome to What is Your COVID Story Going to Be workshop. My name is Aaron Woods, and a little bit about me. I'm a career counselor here at CWU. I facilitate workshops like these. I also teach a class once in a while. I had a 20-year career in high tech. I lived in the Portland area for most of that, worked at Intel for a lot of years, and I just went through a big career change, and now I'm a career counselor. So what we're going to cover today is COVID, is the present situation, how tough it's been, and talk about some ways to possibly cope with what's been going on, and also about thinking about your career and maybe what's next, like your plan maybe got interrupted. So we're going to talk about how to change your plan, and this is going to be kind of an analogy of a story in a movie that I'm going to do, because every story and movie has a hero that gets knocked down or has some obstacles. So that's going to be kind of a theme I'm going to be talking about. Talk about some examples of companies and people overcoming adversity. And then we're going to shift it into you're the hero for your own story or your own movie. What are some things that you can do? And I have a couple of examples of brainstorming. Like one is about if you had these plans for grad school and that's looking like that's in jeopardy. Another one is trying to find a job during COVID. And we'll finish up with like what you can do, writing new stories, some tips and strategies on how to make that effective. So I was thinking about a movie and I was trying to find something that's recent that a lot of you have probably seen. So I picked The Martian. And if you haven't seen it, I'll give you a little rundown. But there was a group of astronauts in the near future that went to Mars, and they were doing their mission. And there's this really bad storm and they had to evacuate. And the storm was so bad that it was destroying equipment. And this character, Matt Damon, Mark Watney, got injured and his suit got damaged, so it looked like he didn't have any vital signs. So they thought that he was dead. So they reluctantly, the crew had to leave him behind and take off in the spaceship before they couldn't take off because of the storm. So obviously that's an extreme setback, but like I said, there's a lot into that story that I really liked in kind of what we're talking about today. So the present situation, our hero is in trouble. And now we're shifting maybe towards your stories. You were going along, you had this plan, you had this script of how you wanted things to look. Maybe that was internships, maybe certainly college life. You had this idea of what college is going to be like, and I'm sure a lot of that got interrupted, but grad school, whatever. So, and then COVID happened, and then remote learning, social isolation, loss, unfortunately for some of you, and just the loss of normalcy. And this certainly had impacts on your script and your plan. Hopefully not too bad, but I think everybody's been affected in some way. And a lot of this has probably resulted in loneliness, depression, anxiety, other things. And we kind of live in this culture where we try not to show weakness or keep a stiff upper lip or put a brave face forward. But if you have these strong feelings and you don't deal with them, they're probably not going to go away. And if you try to find some ways to distract from them, there's some healthy ways to do it, like exercise, but there's a lot of unhealthy ways, like substances or whatever. So my point is that if you have these feelings, try not to like sweep them under the rug and pretend that they're not there, or overcome them just by willpower. These are really big things going on, and this is a lot of adjustment that you've had to do, and it's hard, and it might feel like you're feeling something that a lot of people aren't feeling, but hopefully you found some friends and people that you can talk to about it. But we do a lot of comparison and we think, oh, that person doesn't seem like they're struggling, but I'm struggling, so I don't want to talk about it because they might think something's wrong with me. If you were to ask 10 people or be able to talk to 10 people, I would guess the majority are feeling a lot of the things you're feeling. Some of them are probably feeling worse. So I just want, it's kind of a normalizing thing, like it's okay to not feel okay. And we're going to talk about some ways that you can address that. So I'm going to launch a quick little poll on just kind of your level of concern. So if you wouldn't mind filling this out, it's going to be anonymous, so don't feel like I'm going to look at the answers and make any comments or anything. Okay, so it looks like we have most of the people voted, so I will end the polling and I will share the results. So a pretty good mix of mildly concerned, concerned, very concerned. Not a surprise there. I'm glad to see there wasn't crisis, and I would have been surprised if there was not concerned. So kind of what I expected. All right, so first things first. I was talking about how you might have feelings of anxiety and uncertainty and how these can be really affecting you. They might be affecting your studies, definitely might be affecting how you're looking at the future and what kind of optimism you have for that. So there's this concept that we talk about in counseling of like hierarchy of needs, like you need to have food, you need to have shelter. This kind of comes, my point on it for today is you need to just make sure your foundation is in good shape or at least in decent shape, and that's mental health and physical health. If you're thinking about big career decisions or what to do or what grad school or just things like that, and you're struggling with some really significant things, it's probably not the best time to make those decisions. You're probably not going to make the best decisions. If you're trying to do a job search when you're feeling really socially isolated and depressed, you probably won't be as effective in that job search or possibly an interview. So please try to take care of yourself first so that you're healthy mentally and physically, and that will help you get through school, make better decisions, maybe have a better mindset, and have some more optimism on overcoming these obstacles that you've had from this last year. So some strategies for coping is the CWU Counseling Center. This is free for you. You can meet one-on-one. There's a bunch of self-help resources if that works better for you. And I just want to take away a little bit of the stigma that some people might have with counseling. This could be, you just go in there and just talk one time and you just share your ideas, you bounce some ideas, you feel a little bit better, they give you some ideas, things to explore. That could be enough. Maybe you go every other week for 3 times, whatever you need. Or maybe there's some big thing that's going on that's significant, and maybe it was even before the pandemic. This might be a great time to work on that to help you in your present and your future. So just understand that that's there to help you, and it doesn't mean that by going to career counseling to talk about how COVID's been affecting you that you're like mentally ill or anything or something. We all need help. Everybody needs help at some point. I have not come across anybody who said that I never need to reach out for help in some fashion. Also, friends and family, many are going to be going through the same thing. So please, reach out to those people. There might be somebody around you that's having a worse time than you, but don't even know it. But by you reaching out to that person, you could be supporting them and they could be supporting you. It's a great way to help each other. You can share your experiences, the feelings that you're having. You can give each other support, encouragement, and maybe some of you have learned some ideas on, yeah, this virtual class or virtual classes are really tough, but I found that if I do this, it makes it better. Or I was looking for internship and experiences, and this didn't work out like I planned, but I found these other things. So it's a great way to share ideas because all of you together are going to have a lot more ideas than just me or one or two of you. Another thing about friends and family is you can have accountability buddies. This is a lot like having a workout buddy where you and a friend make an agreement that we are going to show up at the gym at 10 a.m. and work out together. Just that little bit of an agreement of that expectation that you are going to be there for your friend's going to be there for you, can be the difference between going and not going for some people. You could do the same thing with, oh, I'm struggling with my homework. Would you mind checking in with me once a day? Or maybe it's signing into class on time. Whatever the challenges are, help each other. Those little things, those little encouraging, those little support things, even though it might seem small, can make such a difference. And then taking care of yourself physically. I know like access to the gym and some of the exercise has been a little more difficult, but this could be taking a walk. This could be, I bought a set of resistance bands just so I could do some strength training at home. I've been looking for yoga videos, and there's a lot you can do to help. And the exercise is going to help you feel better, and healthy eating is going to make you feel better. So it's a tough time. Try to do what you can in this tough time to help your foundation to get through this. So I have one more poll. I just wanted to kind of gauge what your level of concern is. And so let's see. Oops, I don't need to ask the same question twice. Let me try to find the other question. There. All right, this again is anonymous, so please feel free to, and some of you probably likely have multiple of these, but just think about the one that's the biggest one for you. Okay, so we have a pretty good mix. So being successful in my studies is the leader, followed by my mental physical health, getting a job, and dealing with uncertainty about my future. Yeah, very common. I would have been surprised if this would have just been one thing mainly. These are all things that a lot of you are thinking about right now or are struggling with. Thank you for taking the polls. All right. So I found this quote. I really liked it. It's kind of gets into this notion of mindset. So from the sadness, learn something. From the happiness, learn something. From the setback, learn something. And even from the success, learn something. Never stop learning from any situation in life, for that is where wisdom lies. And I really, this is I found this and it's just perfect because it's with the way we look at things. Like, of course, we're going to be focused on the end goal, like graduating or getting that dream job or things like that. But along the way, we're going to be learning stuff. And it's very common to feel like, oh, this thing's in the way or this thing's making it harder. That's the enemy, or there's something that's, I wish that didn't happen. And now my plan's ruined or something. There are things to learn in all situations, and some of that's just self-awareness. Like, how do you deal with adversity? How do you deal when things don't go well or something falls through? So again, this is kind of getting into the mindset of there's always something to learn. It reminds me of in sports how a lot of people say that they learn more from losing than they do from winning. Okay, so what now? So I think like once you kind of have your foundation, your mental and physical health in some and stabilized, or at least as healthy as it can be with the situation that we're in, what can you change and what can you not change? You can certainly focus on all of the things that we can't do right now, whether that's meeting together, sports events, or just all those different things that we've lost, hopefully temporarily. Hopefully it's going to get back to normal quickly. Uh, and you can stay there and you can complain about it or rail against that, but it won't change anything. It won't make tomorrow better. So what can you change? What is within your realm of control? And with that, look at your goals. You had these goals, you had a plan, it was going to be this sequence of things. What's still possible with that goal? Let's say it's grad school. You really wanted to get a PhD program in something, and you're finding that a lot of PhD programs aren't accepting students this fall. Still, like, maybe expand your search, see what's out there, because there still could be something out there. And so just kind of check what's still possible within your goal, and then reevaluate. What do I absolutely have to have this, or can there be some alternatives? And we're going to go through some alternatives later. The adversity paradox is this notion, like you've probably all heard of that. If I want to make my muscles stronger, I have to work them out. I have to tear them down so that they heal, and then they're stronger a couple of days from now. The same thing goes for all of these things. This is how we learn. This is how we get stronger. This is how we develop resilience and grit. And so there's a lot to be said that if you had a path and you had no obstacles, that's going to be great. Might be a little bit boring, actually, but you will not be as prepared for what's coming in life if you compare to the person who had obstacles, who had to overcome some challenges. So just kind of think about the fact that I also think about, like, when's the last movie you watched, story that you read that didn't have the hero deal with some adversity? be a pretty boring story. We probably wouldn't watch it, or we'd walk out of the theater. And so this is your time to innovate, adjust, create, be flexible, move forward. All right, so I found this really cool speech that Michelle Obama gave, and it's short, but it just really got to the essence of what I'm talking about today.
Who are you going to be? And if you'll notice, I'm not asking what are you going to do, but who are you going to be? I'm asking you about how you plan to live your life every day. How are you going to respond when you don't get that job you had your heart set on? For all of you who are going to be teachers, what are you going to do if the students in your class next year just don't respond to your lessons? For all of you going into business, how will you react when your boss gives you a goal that feels way too high? See, these are the moments that define us. Not the day you get the promotion, not the day you win Teacher of the Year, but the times that force you to claw and scratch and fight just to get through the day. The moments when you get knocked down and you're wondering whether it's even worth it to get back up. See, those are the times when you've got to ask yourself, who am I going to be? And I want to be clear, this isn't just some vague platitude about building character. In recent years, we've actually been seeing a growing body of research that shows that skills like resilience and conscientiousness can be just as important to your success as your test scores or even your IQ. For instance, West Point cadets who scored high on things like grit and determination were more likely to complete basic training than those who ranked high on things like class rank, SAT scores, and physical fitness. So what we're seeing is that if you're willing to dig deep, if you're willing to pick yourself up when you fall, if you're willing to work and work until your weaknesses become your strengths, then you'll develop a set of skills that you can mold and apply to any situation you encounter, any job you might have, any crisis you might confront. But you got to make that choice. And let me just share just a little secret before I end. As someone who has hired and managed hundreds of young people over the course of my career, whether it was during my time as a lawyer, as an administrator, as a university, a nonprofit manager, even now as First Lady, I have never once asked someone I was interviewing to explain a test score or a grade in a class. Never. I have never once made a hire just because someone went to an Ivy League school instead of a state school. Never. What I have looked for is what kind of person you are. Are you a hard worker? Are you reliable? Are you open to other viewpoints? Have you stepped outside of your own self-interest to serve others? Have you found a way to serve our country, whether in uniform or in your community? Again and again, I have seen that those are the qualities that I want on my team, because those are the qualities that move our businesses and schools and our entire country forward. And just understand this. Those are the qualities that you all already embody. They're the values you learned from your parents, from the communities you grew up in. And today, more than ever before, that's what the world needs.
So yeah, I was really excited when I found that video. I thought it was just perfect for kind of the theme I was looking for. So some examples of overcoming adversity, the Lego company, and I actually grew up with Legos, and I remember this in the 1990s that they were fading away. I was worried they're going to get closed down because they were losing money and they weren't doing well. So a new CEO stepped in, they started to expand, and they started this Ninjago line. And I think what really made the difference for them is when they started getting involved with superhero franchises, Harry Potter, all these different things, Star Wars. I think that really, and now they're the world's most profitable toy maker. So just an example of this, the environment changed and this company had to change or they were going to go under. You probably heard of Albert Einstein. He couldn't get a job in physics for 2 years after he graduated, which just seems amazing. He worked out as an assistant patent examiner, was passed over for promotion until he fully mastered machine technology. Now, I think he was in the wrong job, so that's probably why he didn't do well, but just an example, and this happens all the time, of people who achieve great things, but they get knocked down, or something doesn't go according to plan, and they might have to do something they didn't want to do for a while they're figuring out what they're doing, what's next for them, or how to expand into doing something they want to do. Marvel, you probably heard of them. They had the same thing in the 90s where they were just comic books and they were having trouble. And I would say back then the average year had 1 or 2 superhero movies, and things have changed. And now we know how big Avengers, Iron Man, Spider-Man, all those things are today. And so again, just this company had to adapt because things were changing around them, and this is what they did. So now it's time for you to be the hero. And so checking in on Mark Watney, he took stock of his situation. What are his basic needs? Food, oxygen, water. And he began making a plan. He began engineering some solutions, and he created a plan. Now I put an asterisk here because of course this is Hollywood and everything had to go right and all that. But so it's just, don't expect that everything's always going to go right, and be ready for trial and error. Sometimes things are, you make a plan and part of it might work, part of it might not. Speaking of a plan, learning as you go. There is no one size fits all. Each of you are unique, your paths are unique, and so some of it's going to be some trial and error, but you don't have to start from scratch. While this pandemic may be new to most of us, overcoming adversity is not. And there are books, there are thousands of websites, there are lots of different ways that you can go about making a plan. Career counseling, we can help you. Friends and family, they can help. But just know that it's going to take, this is you kind of figuring things out. And you might already know some of this. You might have already overcome some adversities. You know what works for you. And that's great. You have a head start. And this is developing the grit and resilience muscles. So these are skills, but it is like a muscle. The more that you do this, the more that you innovate, the more you try new things, trying to make the best out of the situation, the better you will be for later in life. And that's all of life: work, personal life, relationships, kids, whatever. And employers and graduate schools are looking for these abilities and skills. I was thinking about this workshop last term, and I was like, COVID's really tough. A lot of people, their plans have been disrupted. And I actually heard that an interviewer was asking the applicant, what did you do during COVID? And I thought, oh man, that is a great question, because so much about interviewing is understanding how did you deal with adversity. The interview itself is an adverse situation. A lot of people don't like it. You're nervous. And so having a story of what you did during COVID is really why I made this, and giving you some ideas. And it's not that the day that remote classes happened, you were making plans and you were following that or whatever. You probably went through some grieving. You probably went through some shock and adjustment. Maybe you're still going through that. Some of us definitely still are. But you did some things. You did something. You didn't just kind of wait for it to be over and play video games. Let's see. Oh, and then the reporting, many people report having gratitude after overcoming their setback and adversity. And that could be as simple as, I remember somebody that had this career, they were in it for about 10 years, they were making good money. They didn't love their job, they weren't excited about it, but they had their future planned out, and they knew that they could retire on this, they could make a good living, they could travel. And then the 2008 recession happened, and they lost their job, and their whole plan faded. And nobody, I wouldn't say nobody, but hardly anybody loves that kind of adversity. But this person kind of got through that, got to the shock, figured out a way to process those emotions, and then started making a plan, tried this, tried that. A couple years later, she was in a different career, one that she never would have expected. And she looked back on that and said, you know what? I was going along, I had this plan, but I wasn't really engaged with my work. It was just work. Now I'm doing something I love, I have passion for. I'm glad that thing happened. And that story gets told a lot. Now it's not going to be 100% that it always is going to happen. But again, there's part of a mindset. It's part of being open to learning along the way. I just like talking to students about career exploration. Try a class out that you just had a little bit of interest in. Sometimes a class or two can change your whole path. And this is one of those times too where, yeah, I had this plan, I was going to do this, I was going to do this. Now I can't do all those things. Maybe I'll try something different. A lot can change just by trying something, especially with if your mindset is open to be willing to learn from each of those experiences. All right, here's some quotes. Oprah Winfrey: doing the best at this moment puts you in the best place for the next moment. I love this because it really gets to the fact that you can focus on the end goal and that's the only measure of success, but you can do something today that will make tomorrow better. It could be something small. It could take 5 minutes, it could take 15 minutes. You could do something this week that sets you up even better for next week. Same for the month, same for the year. You're in school right now. You are doing something to make your future better by doing these classes, putting this hard work in. A lot of you are probably working full time. You're really sacrificing a lot. But you can do this every day in little ways, sometimes bigger ways. So I thought that was a great way of showing how all those little steps lead to bigger steps, and then those bigger steps lead to the bigger goals. Booker T. Washington: success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which he has overcome while trying to succeed. So again, it's the journey. There's so much in that journey that is rich and good, and a lot of times we don't realize it until later, and we look back on it. It's like, oh, it didn't seem like fun, but now when I look back on it, it was kind of an adventure, and I really appreciated that. And I learned so much about myself that I wouldn't have known that what I'm capable of if I didn't have to go through that. J.K. Rowling: failure is so important. We speak about success all the time. Is the ability to resist failure or use failure that often leads to greater success. I have met people who don't want to try for fear of failing. I have too. And I've been that person where I didn't want to speak up because maybe I would have sounded stupid. Or in my previous career, I worked at Intel for 16 years. And that was one of their mission statements that they gave to employees is, if you're not failing on a regular basis, you're not trying hard enough, you're not stretching hard enough, you're not expanding. We don't see what's possible unless we take a risk, and we're going to fail sometimes. And so that really stuck with me, that, yeah, if you really want to grow and you want to have bigger things happen, you have to try things. You have to take some risks. And then for you Game of Thrones fans, each bruise is a lesson. Each lesson makes us better. So just that, again, that mindset that you can learn from everything, even the things that seem like, oh, I put so much time into that and it didn't work out, but you still learned something. You probably learned some things along the way. Sometimes life is about finding out where it's not at. And that can be with people, that could be with work, it could be where you live. And sometimes we can't know it until we try it. So, all right. So I was going to go through a couple of scenarios on if this was your plan. Here is some ideas. So this is kind of a brainstorming. So let's say that you had this plan for grad school and it's gotten interrupted, or maybe you're not sure if it's still going to work. So again, see what's possible. Can you widen your search? Are there more grad schools? Now, this does not mean that you take whatever you can get. You still need to think carefully about what you choose to do and that is the right thing for you. I know somebody that chose a grad school and they chose one because the grad school accepted them, and they were just like, oh, well, I'll just make it work. 2 years in, he quit because he hated it. And he realized, I can't spend 3 or 4 more years doing something I hate. And it was a real big blow. So you'd be better off doing a lot of other things than accepting something just because you can. Make sure it's the right fit for you. If you were looking for a PhD, a master's degree could be a great thing instead. And currently, a lot of those are easier to get into. They're waiving like GRE because they want to keep their enrollments up with pandemic and everything. You could work in a related field that would give you experience, skills, perspective. And those real world experiences can make such a difference to you get a taste of what that career is like, or you are working around some people who have the PhD or wherever you want to go. You might make different decisions just by having that experience. And it might be one of those cases where it's like, I'm so glad I had that 2 years of work. You made some money, but you also learned so much that you changed your plan based off of that awareness that you now have. And grad schools love to have candidates with work experience. I went to a seminar years ago in my undergrad, and there was a guy that wrote a book on how to get into grad schools and strategies. And he said that a lot of grad schools prefer people that have real world experience, real work experience for series of years, or just volunteering or doing things, getting out there in the real world. And some companies will pay for grad school. Intel, I had a roommate who just graduated with his master's degree in mechanical engineering. He didn't have to pay for it. Intel paid for it. Not all companies do that. And typically a company is going to do that when it's a degree that will benefit that company. And some companies make you work there for a couple of years or something. So it's out there. It happens. Recent college grads can get internships at times. Not all of the internships would qualify, but gives you experience, it gives you skills, gives you a foot in the door. Internships often lead to jobs as well. And let's see, some more ideas. If you have the means, travel, experience life, you may not get this chance again. If you really are going to dive into your career and you want to have a family, you might not be able to have this kind of freedom again. Now, I'm not saying go get loans to go do this unless it's that important to you, but you could spend a month traveling across the US and camping and living cheap. And again, it's an adventure. You could make the most of it and get some really rich experiences. And I wanted to get to the notion that it doesn't look bad to have a pause between undergrad and grad school. I talked about some of those reasons before, but I would kind of focus on what are you doing that's adding to yourself, like if it's travel, experiencing other cultures, or are you doing something that's good for your career path? Are you volunteering so you can use your skills? Are you doing some part-time work in a place that that's meaningful to you, maybe giving back to the community? It could also be a time to look at additional learning. Maybe you were close to getting another major or a minor. That's something you can think about. Certifications are a great way to round out a degree, to add something else. And there's a lot of different certifications programs out there. Some of them are pretty small, don't cost very much. Some of them are very lengthy and they can cost a lot, but they can be very valuable. They can open doors to jobs just by having that certificate. So I don't know everything. I wanted to invite you, if any of you have any ideas on this particular scenario, on if grad school is interrupted, do you have any ideas? And you can either write them or unmute and talk. Okay, no ideas. That's okay. There was a pretty big list, so I was going to be surprised. But like I said, there's a lot of things I'm still learning about how to create new plans. All right, the second scenario, I'm just checking the time, 5:35. Finding a job during a pandemic. Companies are still hiring. And in fact, compared to the 2008, 2009 recession, it's a lot better than it was, except unless you talk about tourism and hospitality or service type work. But when things start getting back to normal, there's going to be a mad hiring rush on a lot of those industries and sectors. Also in 2008 and 2009, there were some companies that were complaining like we couldn't fill 200 jobs because people weren't applying. People had this mindset like, oh, the economy stinks. Why put time into looking? And so they weren't even applying when there were jobs out there. So in career services, we see research sometimes on a weekly basis, a lot of times on a monthly basis. Employers are still hiring, employers are still posting, employers are still doing coming to career fairs. So just don't believe that there aren't jobs out there. Now, because there might be less jobs, do your best to stand out, whether that's internships, volunteering, join a student club, definitely things like resume, cover letter, interviewing. That's the kind of stuff you can work with career services with. So do your best to make yourself the best candidate you can. And utilizing those resources. So career service we talked about the counseling center, specialized training and classes. This can be things like maybe you're entering into a job field that you need to be pretty good at Excel and you're so with it. You can find classes. A lot of times they're free where you can learn more and more Excel things to where you can round out those skills. And sometimes you can pay for like those programs, and that's something you could list on your resume that I completed this three classes of this from this organization. And then workshops just like this. Every term we have workshops on resumes, cover letters, managing your brand, LinkedIn, interviewing, and then we think of new workshops just like this one. And if you don't know this already, because you're a CWU student, you have access to career services for life. I met with a student couple or alum that graduated 5 years ago recently. And earlier last summer, I met with somebody that actually lost her job because of COVID. So we refreshed her resume, we did some job searching, and she's now was able to find some work. So make a plan and a schedule, start small, grow, and then grow that habit and build that habit. It's tempting to kind of say, I need to solve this, so I'm going to go spend 2 full days on this. It's not going to be that easy. And I would not, I would dissuade somebody from trying to do a job search for 6 hours straight or even 4 hours straight. Start small, make yourself a schedule, look for ways that you can get help. Again, you don't have to start from scratch. People like me can help you, maybe friends and family, and understand what works best for you. We've talked a lot about mindset. It's so much of this whole theme that I'm going with here on just understanding that job search is tough. I just gave a lecture on job search, and typical job search is 30 to 90 days, and that's normal times. So with the pandemic, it could be quicker. Of course, we all want to get that first job or two we apply for, and it can still happen, especially the more you prepare yourself. But have the mindset that, okay, this is going to take a while. For an example, when I interviewed for this job at CWU as a career counselor, I felt pretty good about the interview. I walked out and I was like, I don't know if I could have done much better, but I also didn't know who my competition was. So the next day I applied to 2 more jobs, and that way I still wanted the job at CWU, and I was still like watching the email or hoping the phone would ring, but I didn't have so much pressure on it that I put all my eggs in that basket. And so I kept moving forward, and it reduced if I would have not got the job, I would have felt better because I still had things in motion. Other things you can do, like to find work, is look for freelance and gig opportunities. These are great ways to maybe get your foot in the door, get some experience. Volunteering is another way. These are all different ways to practice the skills that you want. Like maybe let's say that you want to do technical writing, and you find some opportunities where you can do technical writing, and you can add that to your portfolio. And portfolio doesn't mean just writing or art. It's examples of you doing the kind of work you want to do. You could try out some jobs with temporary work. Temp jobs are great because there's no commitment. They can let go of you whenever they want, but you can let go of them whenever you want. I mean, I would still give them the 2 weeks of notice just to be respectful, but you could try out a job and it's like, oh yeah, I hate that job, and I'm not going to do that again. You learn something, made a little bit of money. Temp jobs also can lead to permanent jobs. My first tech job back in the late 90s, I worked at Hewlett Packard as a temp worker, and I got hired on. I worked hard and I got hired on full time. They actually paid for my associate degree. If you have free time while doing the job search, continue to learn new skills. We talked a little bit about that. You can look into certifications, online training. Occasionally, I'm taking an online class from Yale, different subjects. It's totally free. If I wanted to get some kind of certificate, I could pay, I think it's $30, maybe $50 to show that I took this class. I could list it on my resume if I wanted to, if it was relevant to the work. Lots of different ways you could be learning and improving yourself while you're doing a job search. And lastly, networking, informational interviews, joining related organizations. The stats of the jobs that people have that were never posted on a job board is really high. Like 60–70% of jobs that people have are not posted on job boards. So it is a lot of who you know. It is a lot of reaching out. It is a lot of getting to know people. One of the best things that's happened to me, and it's happened a couple of times in my previous career in high tech, is I was talking to somebody about, oh, I'm looking to expand or try something new. And they said, oh, I know of this opportunity that you'd be great for. Give me your resume and I'll give it to the hiring manager. It's like going to the front of the line and getting a referral at the same time. So that's just one of those, a benefit of networking. Informational interviews are when you ask somebody that's doing a job role that you're interested in, hey, do you have 20 or 30 minutes so I could talk to you about what your job's like and what you've learned and some advice that you have? Before I left my high-tech career, I reached out to 3 different career counselors at 3 different universities, got a lot of great information. It even adjusted how I was going to do my education path. Joining related organizations. Most careers and industries have organizations. Some of them are very formal and they are industry recognized, and you go through a process. Maybe you have to take an exam to get some kind of certification and you join that organization. Some of you just join and you're part of that organization. They give you articles, they give you, they might have chat boards. It's a great way to network. LinkedIn has a bunch of groups that are just like this, where there could be a group and there's like 300,000 people, members of that group, and they're talking about related things. It's a good way to learn about the field. 2 years into my master's degree for counseling, I joined the National Career Development Association, which is a very well-known organization dealing with career counseling. And I got exposure to the articles. I could see what they were talking about, and I got to put it on my resume. So it's kind of showed that I was already kind of getting a head start on my career. And looking for a job is a job. Be kind to yourself. It is hard. It's like I said, start slow. Be good to yourself. Maybe make a schedule, half an hour, and then as you kind of get better at it, you can maybe spend more time. And reward yourself for your hard work. Celebrate the milestones. Maybe you applied for 4 jobs this week. Celebrate in some way that's works for you. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but just recognize that the process, each of those little things, just like a class, you get the assignment done, you get the big project done, or you get the midterm done. It's the same thing with the job search. And again, I don't know everything. I gave a pretty big list, but does anybody have any ideas that I haven't thought of that you've thought of with job search? And you can either talk or put it in the chat. Okay. Oh, there was a mention in the chat, like the idea of getting an internship. Yeah, thanks, Johnny. Okay, so we have about 15 minutes. I left a little bit of time and room here. Is there something like one of your the biggest concern that I didn't cover? We could spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes brainstorming together on how to address that concern. Does anybody have anything that they would like to bring up? Not all at once. Okay, I will move on. It was just something I wanted. I was curious if anybody wanted to do a brainstorm. Again, any of this that we're doing, like the 2 scenarios I had for grad school and job search, this is a lot of what career counseling is. You can meet with me. We have other career counselors that are covering different colleges. This is what we do. We help understand what your path is, understand what you're trying to do, and look for ways together to move you forward. It's not about us giving you a bunch of answers and then that's it. It's about understanding what works for you and helping you, encouraging you, and supporting you along the way. All right, so wrapping up. I'm not going to tell you the ending of Martian in case you hadn't seen it. Let's see. Making a plan can really help with those feelings of uncertainty and anxiety, and action is even better. Just to start on that process, even if it's small, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, and you just start kind of building that habit in. A plan is great, but how do I start? How do I keep at it? And again, this is understanding what's worked for you. What's worked for you when you had big things to do, like maybe you had a big project, or maybe when you're applying for to get into CWU. Whatever that is, what has worked for you to give you success when you had an obstacle and you had to overcome that? Let's see, friends and family or people like me can help you. Accountability buddies, like we talked about. I've worked with students and we made an agreement that, hey, I'll check in with you every couple of weeks for a while to check to help you if that works for you. I give you some encouragement. If I check in with you and you haven't done anything, I'm not going to yell at you or say bad, but it's just sometimes that little bit of incentive of somebody else involved with you and your path can help. Working through the plan, don't expect perfection, have grace with yourself, because some of this can be trial and error, and there's just going to be times where maybe classes are really hard this week. You scheduled to do job search for 2 hours or whatever the thing is that you want to do, and it's just not the right day, it's not the right week. That's okay. You don't have to be perfect. Don't beat yourself up about it that you didn't exactly do what you wanted to. You can always make it up, or you can just kind of forgive yourself in the sense that, you know what, this was a tough week and I will start fresh next week. Or and if you find yourself sliding, then you can reach out to somebody like me. Let's see. Oh yeah, and reward yourself. I talked a little bit about that before with the job search, but um, a lot on the journey. I mean, I picked this picture of Mark Watney of just kind of enjoying the view, even though I'm not sure if that's exactly what he's doing in the movie, but it's that smelling the roses, taking the time to check in, like, yeah, this can be an adventure. You can treat this as an adventure in some ways, and adventures aren't always fun. I mean, in movies and stuff, we see that they're fun a lot of times, but life is an adventure, and there's going to be a lot of adversity. So just understand that, yeah, you can put your head down and only focus on your work until you get to that goal, but there's a lot you could be enjoying and appreciating along the way. Yeah, we talked about this early on. You're not alone in what you're feeling. Reach out, discuss challenges, share ideas and support. I've asked you guys for ideas and support on the sense of your ideas. Do that with your friends. I bet all together, 5 of you will have a lot better ideas than 1 of you or 2 of you. And lastly, this can work for somebody, creating a vision board or some way for you to crystallize your goal in a visual way that you'll see each day. Some people that could be a collage, some people that could be some quotes, it could be an image. Maybe you have a dream location or a house or something that you want. It could be a single word. It could be a reminder on your phone. Again, just kind of something that reminds you why you're doing this, why you're putting in this work, why you are going through this struggle. Sometimes we just need this to get through classes. All right, so, and it's okay to cry as long as you keep moving forward. Like I said, it's okay to not feel okay. And just a couple last quotes. Life is not about waiting for the storm to pass, but learning to dance in the rain. And then John Wooden is a very famous basketball coach in the 60s and 70s for UCLA. A lot of books written, and a lot of people think that he really changed college basketball coaching, but things work out best for those who make the best out of how things work out. So just making the best out of it, knowing that, yeah, I don't have the ideal case, but I can still control some of this. I can still make things better. I can still set myself up for a better tomorrow, a better next month. So just a review of our resources. You can find this on any CWU homepage. If you look under student services, that is our career services email. Counseling services you can find by going to the A to Z list on CWU and looking for medical counseling. And let's see, I have this survey that it's pretty short, and I would love if you wouldn't mind filling it out. So I'm gonna bring this to, I'll put this in the chat. And we're at that time, if you have any questions, please ask whatever you would like about what we've talked about, whether it's career services or anything that's come up while you were watching this. All right, quiet crowd. I'm sure it's probably that time of the term where you have a lot going on. I've already talked to some of you about that. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind taking a couple of minutes to fill out the survey, that would be really helpful for us to keep our workshops as effective as possible. We always have things we can be learning. And of course, you can always reach out and make an appointment with a career counselor by going to the CWU homepage. And there's a place to book appointments. And you can always just reach out to me by through email if you have a random question or something. So I appreciate all of you coming, and yeah, good luck with all of the above. I hope this was helpful for you.